Respected presenters, dear participants, ladies and gentlemen. The subject of my presentation is the fight against inflation after the COVID-19, the case of Turkey. As of July 2022, the 10 countries with the highest consumer inflation are Zimbabwe, Lebanon, Venezuela, Sudan, Syria, Turkey, Argentina, Sri Lanka, Suriname, and Iran. Turkey ranks 6th among the 10 countries with the highest inflation in the world. As of June 2022, Turkey's consumer inflation rate is 79.6%. After the epidemic, inflation has emerged as a global problem. At the beginning, it is considered as a temporary problem. However, it accelerated and increased its persistency, especially after the Ukraine war. It is seen all over the world, from developed countries to developing countries and to less developed countries. Inflation protests took place on almost all countries and continents. There has been news of protests from Sri Lanka, Pakistan, Argentina, Netherlands, Italy, Albania, and China. Inflation protests have resulted in the resignation, change, or overthrow of governments in power in some countries. Although protests took place in most of the high inflation countries, there were no widespread protests in Turkey. Presidential and parliamentary elections in Turkey will be held on mid-2023. Thus, the government stay-away policies threatening its popularity. That is why the government hasn't resorted to tight monetary policy or has sought IMF credit against the rising inflation after the COVID-19 pandemic. Traditional advice against rising inflation is to increase the policy rate of the central bank. However, the government of Turkey doesn't increase the central bank's policy rate and kept it at the level of 14%. Instead, the government adopted the new economic model of Turkey. When we look at this model, the government follows policies that encouraging investment, production, export, current account surplus, and employment, while supporting all segments of the society against inflation and global shocks by providing citizens with income and wage compensations above inflation. Within this framework, the government aims to stabilize prices and to drop inflation down to single digits in 2023 before elections with other policies rather than increasing the central bank's policy rate. While the government in Turkey tries to eliminate the negative effects of inflation on the lives of citizens by raising the income level of all segments, it also takes measures to reduce inflation. As such, within the scope of fight against inflation, Turkey introduced the FX-protected Turkish lira deposits, provided citizens with electricity and natural gas consumption subsidies, reduced taxes on food and beverage services, basic food supplies, and cleaning and hygiene products, facilitated grain corridor agreement, initiated a new social housing project, limited the increase in house rental prices, introduced supermarkets run by agricultural credit cooperatives, introduced a regulation on the trade of second-hand motor vehicles, initiated efforts to reduce energy costs such as drilling activities to find oil and natural gas and building dams for hydroelectric power. Thank you very much for your kind listening.